Welcome to this session of EndNote 21. My name is Christopher Jimenez. I'm an associate librarian with the FIU Libraries. I'm joined by my colleague here, Daisy De La Rosa. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon. This is Daisy, and I'm an Information and Instruction Services librarian at the FIU Medical Library. So thank you for joining us today. And like Chris said, I hope that the session is helpful for you.
Right, and not to not mention her. Shelby Powell is another librarian with the FA Library. She will be monitoring the chat because I'm terrible at looking at chat, even though I always say, put your questions in the chat or interrupt me, but then I don't look. So she's going to be monitoring chat. Do you want to say anything else, Shelby, by way of introduction?
I'm actually a reference librarian that's primarily located at the BBC campus. So if you ever need help down there, please feel free to reach out to us at the Hubert Library. And like Chris said, pop any questions or comments in the chat. I'll hopefully be able to keep up with some helpful links, but please feel free to communicate there.
All right, so thank you so much. Welcome to our EndNote workshop. Again, this is one of several workshops that we put on for graduate students, primarily, although we welcome everyone at the university community throughout the year. So we usually, this is our first EndNote workshop. We'll have another one later on in November, and then we'll also run this again in the spring. We also have a workshop on Zotero. So if you're interested in that citation manager, feel free to join us for that conversation. We have discussions on literature reviews, systematic reviews, and where to publish your research. We have several other workshops is basically what I have to say about that. You can go ahead and find our workshops at the graduate studies LibGuide. Now, keep in mind that for this workshop, if you want to follow along, you can on your own computer. We will be building a small demonstration library. So you can feel free to work with us. The only limitation is that we are working on EndNote 21, which is the brand new software that they just came out with. You can get it from the PantherTech store. So you go to panthertech.fiu.edu, you go ahead and log in, browse for it, and download it and check out with it. It is a free download. So you can download it, install it. It takes a little bit, but then once you've downloaded, installed it, and logged into it, you will have access to the online version, which is actually new for this year. They have a brand new interface. It's pretty slick, pretty sleek. But if you haven't already downloaded it and logged in, you won't really be able to follow along on that platform. You can always use EndNote Basic, that is free, but it is the older version. So I've already given you some information that we were planning on covering. But first, before we even get into that, we really need to ask ourselves, what is EndNote, right? So EndNote, we like to visualize it as like a virtual file cabinet. So you get your, you do your research, you got all your papers here, and then you put them in a filing cabinet to, put away for later, and then you pull it out. Right. Well, this is a digital version of this. It's also, you can think of it as a reusable database of citations. So you go through, all the databases at FIU. You go through the databases that are, public, either on governmental websites, or you go to news websites, and you find all these awesome articles, and you save them to your own personal database that you can go ahead and retrieve these citations later. EndNote is also a dynamic citation generator. So as you're writing in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, you can pull up your citation manager right on the side and insert those citations directly into the document right at the point of usage, right? So you can put in those in-text citations, and then it will generate a bibliography for you right at the end and keep that all managed and nice and neat in the style that you choose, right? Speaking of styles, you can actually change those citation styles on the fly with the click of a button, right? So you click a button, you're in JAMA. Oh, nope, I actually need this in APA. Click on APA 7. Boom, it changes everything for you, reorients all the citations right away. If, for some reason you know, you had to change that again, and oh no, I'm using Chicago style. Oh well, let's go ahead and go. Do you need footnotes or endnotes? Okay, it'll go ahead and remodify your whole paper for you, so long as you have that connection maintained between your document and your citation manager. EndNote also allows you to collaborate with groups, so you can put together shared resources, have a group that's shared with others who are on EndNote 21 or even on EndNote Basic, and all of you can add citations as you're doing research, as you're finding more information to build that reference library. And then, of course, it is a piece of software that lives on your computer, right? So you can take that, you know, and go anywhere with it, really, anywhere that your computer is allowed to go, and work on your document. And when you are online, it will sync with the cloud. So it synchronizes with your online library, allowing you to maintain those, let me admit this person, allowing you to maintain your citations digitally. So I've already mentioned on EndNote Basic. EndNote Basic is a free online version. It's got fewer features. Again, it allows you to log in, allows you to maintain some references, but it's not going to plug in to your various other applications. Now, if you get the desktop version, it automatically allows you to have provisions you with an online account that allows you to back up your EndNote library and to share it. And again, new with EndNote 21, you have a new user interface, right, for the online basic version. And EndNote 21 has new recovery features. So there's like a backup to your backup, basically, that allows you to click on a button and restore your backup should anything happen to it, any corruption to your files. Now, there are several advantages of using EndNote. With this version, EndNote 21, again, it lives on your computer and syncs with the cloud. Some of the advantages of that is that basically you can work offline. There are some citation management tools that are online only, meaning, if you don't have a network connection, your internet goes down for one reason or another, you have no citations, right? EndNote 21, when you download the application, boom, it's on your computer. You can work offline. You can have a distraction-free mode and all that if you choose. It crawls the web for PDFs. Now, this is a really cool feature. We'll talk about how to set this up, or at least we'll give you some of the settings that you'll need to plug in for it. But basically, when you've pulled you can export a bunch of citations, and then with one click, tell the application, tell EndNote to go ahead and see if you can find the PDF of this citation, pull it from wherever wherever it's stored, and attach it to your offline library, so you can again read it offline. So that's a really cool feature. And of course, you can have multiple libraries, allowing you that flexibility of working on separate projects or separate teams or what have you. Now, some of the disadvantages, again, with the multiple libraries, you can only sync one library to the cloud at a time. Again, there is certain disadvantages that were addressed in EndNote 21, like tagging. So tagging is an alternate feature that you can apply your own metadata scheme to certain. Welcome to those of you who joined. I didn't mean to not acknowledge you. I was in the middle of transferring from my notes to you guys. So welcome. So you can do tagging now in EndNote 21. That's something that you could not do in previous versions. And then again, when you can run a deduplication process. So if you're importing massive numbers of citations, you run this deduplication function, and it will show you what duplicates you have, but it won't allow you to merge them. Right, so you have to pick one or the other. Now, while you have both up, you can choose the best information from either one and then select the one. And then I think finally, this is the last part of my just talking at you. We'll start showing you some stuff. The last thing to talk about is the price, right? I already mentioned you can download it for free at the Panther Tech the store, right? So you go to pantotech.fiu.edu, log in, and check out with it. It will provide you with a download. If you need the media, that is $20 for the media. So you get a CD, you get an actual CD with the application on it. Just remember, right? EndNote is actually an expensive piece of software, right? Without the institutional affiliation, it could run you a couple $100. If you get a new computer, right, you can still download it from us as long as you have that institutional affiliation. But if you leave FIU, you will need to purchase it, right? And if a new version comes out, with all these awesome new features, right, and Note 26 or whatever, you may need to go ahead and buy that license update. All right. So I'm going to pause. I thought I saw someone had a question.
Yes, there is a question. It looks like we have a question. Is there a good way to transfer your Zotero library to EndNote?
Absolutely. So Zotero and all. That's actually a great point. So when shopping around and looking for citation managers, it's great to remember that all of these citation management tools are interoperable in a certain sense, right? Where you can export your entire library and then import it into another one, right? So you're going to export it typically into an RIS file format, and then you can import that RIS file back into another one. So from Zotero, again, you're going to export your entire library as RIS, and then you'll import it into EndNote as RIS. Or import that RIS file into that application. So it is kind of a big commitment, right? Especially if you're in the middle of writing a paper and you're using a particular citation management tool. You probably don't want to move to another one right in the middle of a project. But at the end of the project, you can evaluate how that went for you and say, you know what, this didn't really meet my needs, my workflow. Maybe Zotero would be a better one for my workflow, or maybe EndNote, or maybe RefWorks, or maybe, some other one. So that's completely up to you. It's not much of an obligation. Now, if you were to pay for EndNote, you might have a little bit more motivation to make it work. But as long as you're getting it subsidized by the university, it's it's probably less painful to switch. All right. Thank you. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and show you a couple pre-made libraries. I'm on a Mac computer. Daisy is on a PC. So I'm going to go ahead and show you around on a Mac first. Let's see here. You should be seeing my EndNote library. Is that what you're looking at right now, or are you looking at my browser?
EndNote.
You're looking at EndNote. Good. All right. So here we are. This is EndNote. And you'll see that because I'm on a Mac, it does have the toolbar is across the top there. So you got your EndNote menu, file, edit, references, groups, tags, library tools, window, and help across the top. That hides itself. That's a setting on my computer. Now, on moving from our left over, we have the groups panel. This is where you can organize your references into various different groups and folders and subsets. And you've got your tags here as well. You got the full text finder option. That's when you do run that process, it'll show up there with which pieces are actually finding full text and what's not finding full text, what's been shared with you, and then your online searches, okay? Now I'm going to go back to, let's say, all references. Moving towards the center, we have the search panel where we can go ahead and search our entire library. And this will pull up from the author fields, right? The title. We can do a keyword search. We can even search, where is it? Our notes, right? Any notes that we leave for ourselves. If we scroll up, we've got the any field, right? Which is very broad, very general. We can even search it within the PDF. So if the PDF has been OCR'd, right? The optical character recognition processes have been run on the PDF. It will search the text of the PDF if you select this option, right? And then, boom, we can run our search through our library. Moving below that, we have our reference panel. This is where all our references are. And as we click, or let's say let's double click on an option. Actually, I want one that has a PDF. As we double click on a reference, we see the reference panel to the right. Okay, and we can change this. This can be split vertically. It can be split horizontally so that it shows below. But here we have it automatically opens up with the edit option where we can edit the metadata. So sometimes when we import a reference, the some of the information may come in a little bit wonky, a little bit wrong. We can fix that. We can fix, let's say, abbreviations, that kind of thing, right in here. And that's very good practice when you do start working with a reference manager, because once you start writing, then this information, this data is what the system is pulling from in order to build your bibliographies, in order to build your references. So it's good practice to make sure that this is up to date. We do have a summary tab across the top here. It provides you with whatever information is provided by the database. And then the PDF panel allows you to read the PDF, allows you to to make notes, right? We can drop a note in here. We can highlight and so on. I'm gonna undo that. I'm going to pause for just a moment. Does anybody have any questions about the layout within a Mac? Because I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Daisy, who's going to show you the EndNote 21 on a PC. I didn't hear anybody shout, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. I'm going to turn it over to Daisy.
Can you see my EndNote library?
I can, yes.
Yes. Okay, sorry, I wasn't looking over there. Okay, let me just move this over. All right. Okay, so here is EndNote library. Like Chris said, I'm on a PC, so it looks a little bit different, but for the most part, everything's kind of located in the same places. As Chris mentioned, the main menu for EndNote, where you're going to access some of the features and some of the action items that we're going to be talking about today, is right across the top. It's very obvious in the PC version versus the Mac version, where you kind of have to hover towards the top and then it kind of, and then you'll be able to see it. The other difference too is that certain things in the main menu on Mac and PC differ. So one example is your preferences. So if you go to edit and then preferences, this is where you're going to find options to customize your EndNote library. Whereas in a Mac, this is found, again, if you hover to that main menu and you select EndNote, that's where you'll find preferences. It's not going to be under edit. So there's little differences like that. There's also some troubleshooting things that Mac users encounter that PC users don't. So it's important that when you are looking for EndNote support online, or maybe you're working with one of us to help you troubleshoot, that we know whether it's a PC or Mac, because the instructions might differ between the two of them. But just to reorient ourselves here with the PC version, we have the same three panels, right? Our groups panel on the left, where you can see how many references you have. You can see the groups or folders that you have created. Down the middle, you have your references or your reference list that you can navigate. A lot of shortcuts to some of the menu items up here across the top are going to be available here as well. So we're going to explore some of those in the workshop. And then, as Chris mentioned, you have the ability to search your library here, a simple search or an advanced search. And then on the right, you have your reference panel. Again, very similar. You have your summary. You have the ability to edit here. All these fields are live. So if you need to change something, you can come in here and edit it. And then if there is a PDF attached, as Chris mentioned, it will show up here, or you'll have the opportunity to attach it, which we will show you an example of that. Another panel here, and I noticed on Macs mostly that is sometimes it's a little bit hidden. It's kind of like all the way at the bottom. So you want to use your mouse to kind of drag it and open it up, is the preview panel. So in this panel, you'll see what the citation will look like in your Word document. It's good to check here to see if, you know, everything that you have in the fields and the citation style you have selected, if it actually generated it correctly. So it's still, you know, EndNote can't really correct things based on style. It does its best, but it's not that intuitive. If there is an error, it's not going to really catch it. So looking at the preview panel can be helpful, you know, just to make sure that it's accurate, or so that you can see if you have to make any changes. From here, you can insert into a Word doc, or you can copy the citation. And here you can also switch from one style to another. So if I wanted to switch to APA, then I'll see that the citation changed, which is really nice. One of those really nice features of EndNote. Okay, so now that we kind of have the navigation down, hopefully, how do we get to this point where we have a bunch of references and we have all these folders or groups? So we're going to create a library. We're going to see different ways of adding references and then how we can organize them. All right, so first thing, when you download the EndNote software, usually you're prompted to create an EndNote library, but if you're not, then you would go up to File up at the top and then New. So a couple things before we create the library about EndNote libraries. The first thing is you want to make sure that they are saved to your hard drive, to your actual computer, and not to any cloud-based storage. So no iCloud or Dropbox or OneDrive. According to EndNote, this will corrupt your library over time if it's on a network drive or any of those cloud-based storage. So make sure that you're paying attention to where it's being saved. I know for Macs, sometimes the default is iCloud. So make sure that you're able to change that or save it elsewhere, that it's on the hard drive. Another thing to note is that once you create this EndNote library, you're going to have two files. You're going to have the .enl, and you're going to have a data folder that corresponds with the EndNote library. So these two files always have to stay together, and they always have to have the same name. So if you change it from one subdirectory to another in your files, make sure you move them both at the same time. If you have to change the name, or you want to change the name of your EndNote library, make sure you also change the name of the data folder. If there is a discrepancy between the two, you may not be able to open up the library, and that could be problematic. As Chris mentioned, there's ways to back this up to your EndNote online and restore it, but it's better not to risk that. So always keep those files together. And then we do recommend only having one library. You have the flexibility to create multiple libraries if you want to, but if you can, try to avoid that. It can get very tricky to manage multiple libraries, especially because they do have that data folder that also corresponds with each library that you create. Also, when you're in a Word document, it may not know which library to pull from. It could corrupt the actual Word document. So it's just best to work with one library. And then if you have multiple projects, to use the groups and folders to help you stay organized with those. So that's the three things to remember when you create a new library. So you can name the library whatever you choose. I'm going to name it Workshop here. You can name it Research Projects, whatever is going to make sense for you. Okay, so here we have a nice new clean library. Once you open up the library, we do recommend adjusting some settings before you start working with EndNote so that EndNote works it's best for you. So these settings, I'm not going to go into detail with each one, but we do have them. We do have a guide on the medical library that is for EndNote, and it kind of walks you through all the steps. A lot of the things that we're touching on the workshop today are on this guide. So if you go to set up EndNote, you'll see all the steps here on setting up import filters, adding a journal's term list, how to select a citation style, the full text feature, right? So these are all different things, especially full text feature we're going to show today. So let me go back to EndNote here and talk to you why you might want to do these. And these settings could take you like 5 minutes or less. It's just a couple clicks here and there. So as far as import filters, and again, the steps are on the guide. Here, this will allow, when you're pulling things from databases, it will allow them to import them accurately into EndNote in the proper fields, in the proper format. So that's why it's important to do this. And it's basically coming in here and marking all the databases listed. It's that easy. Another one that I think is extremely useful, will save you time down the road, is a journal terms list. So when you go to library and then open term lists, journals, I'm just going to do it very quickly here so you can see what I mean, but the instructions are on there. So based on your discipline, I work at the medical library, so here, I think it'll be easier for me to show you. So what I've done is that this will, let me see if I can, might not be able to see it. Oh, there you go. Okay, so what this does is that it will add lists of journals, their full title and their abbreviated title. That way, EndNote will make the switch for you when you need it. So if I go back to my original library, so I can show you this in action. So let's say that you need to cite an AMA format, right? Or something that requires the abbreviated title from the National Library of Medicine, let's say. Because I have added this list to EndNote in advance, when I switch from APA to AMA, so here we see it's the British Medical Bulletin. When I switch to AMA, it's going to automatically add the abbreviation for me. If I didn't have this list, the title would probably stay the same, and I would have to go and fix it for every single one of my references. So doing this in advance prevents you from having to edit every single thing. And again, it's just a couple clicks of setting that up. So I thought that that would be important for you to know, to save you some time down the road. Another setting would be the full text feature, which we'll talk about when we show you that and how you can set it up. And then finally, syncing your library. Chris talked about EndNote Online. We do recommend you create an EndNote Online account so that you can sync your library to the cloud. And that way, if you want to work with your library on multiple devices, you can do that with EndNote Online, where you have the same library on your laptop and the same library at your desktop. If you want to collaborate with somebody, you need the EndNote Online account. So that's something that you also want to do before you even start working with EndNote. And you can do that by going to Edit, and then Preferences, and then Sync, and then Enable Sync. And then here you'll have the opportunity to log in with an EndNote Online account or create one right here, right from EndNote. So again, just a little bit of 5 or 10 minutes of your time before you start working with EndNote to make sure it works at its full potential. I'll pause just in case. Are there any questions here? Oh, I see that there aren't. Okay. All right. So we've talked about creating a new library, doing the settings, right, to make EndNote work for us. So how do we get references in here? So there are multiple ways to get references into EndNote. There's automatic ways like direct export, where a lot of our databases, resources online have an option to download that RIS file that Chris was talking about. That is the file type that EndNote and many of the citation managers can read and understand. So a lot of databases and resources have that option to download the citation information and automatically populate it into EndNote. So we're going to see a couple of those examples. You can also use the EndNote capture tool. So if you are online and you happen to find a newspaper article or a website, like a page from the CDC, for example, and you want to add that reference into EndNote, there is a shortcut that you can add to your browser. We also wanted to show you let's say you've never used a citation manager, but you've done a lot of research and you have a bunch of PDFs. You can build your library with those PDFs because EndNote will try to find the reference information that corresponds with that PDF. Some caveats: it has to be machine readable, it has to have a DOI, but that can save you a lot of time as you start to build a library with stuff you already have. And then finally, there's going to be instances where there is no direct export option. Maybe it's some print material, something that is older material, and you have to create the citation manually. So that's, you know, something that you can do, and it's fairly easy to do. So we're gonna show you all of those examples. So first, we're going to start at our catalog. Every item in our catalog has the option to export an RIS. So here we have a book that's available in print. It's also available online. And then you have these options down below. So we have here EndNote, but we also have export RIS. So EndNote, that would seem like the obvious choice, but actually that's going to send the information to your EndNote online account. But if you want to send it to your desktop, which is the one we're focusing on in the workshop, then you want to select export RIS. So once you do that, it's going to prompt you to download the RIS file. And then once you do, it will just automatically populate into your EndNote library, which is really convenient. So a lot of them work that way. You want to look for keywords like export and cite and save, and look for those links to help you download the RIS file. So that's what it looks like from our catalog. I do want to mention that, you know, if you have material like print material that there's no direct export option, always come back and look in our catalog and see if we have it. If we have it and we have the metadata for the citation, you can always export the RIS and do the direct export. If we don't have it in our catalog, you can go to worldcat.org that searches multiple catalogs across the world. If that resource is in there, you also have the option to export RIS. So that's a really nice way to get something that's in print and do the direct export versus you having to create it manually. So always check and see if that's an option. So let's look at some of the article databases. So I'm going to use CINAHL, which is the Nursing and Allied Health database. It lives in EBSCO. So depending on your discipline, many of our databases are hosted on EBSCO. So it's good to know how to export references from here. So let's say that we do our search, right? Okay, so you can export one by one. So I'm going to show you both, or you can export multiple references at one time. So here we have our citation information for this. And then you want to look for the tools on the right side and look for export. Once you do, you're going to see that it says direct export in RIS format. So there's that cue or that clue letting you know that this is for EndNote. It's also here in parentheses. So once you select save, it's going to, okay, let's try this again. Sorry about that. Hopefully it works this time. Okay, export, save, and it's not working. Okay. I'll try it one more time. Okay. Export. Okay, so there it goes. All right, so it downloaded, and then we have our article populate in there. So now we're starting to see in all references, we have our 2 references we've added so far. The one we just imported and anything we've recently added during this session that we've had EndNote open. You can also send multiple references at one time by adding them to a folder first here in EBSCO. So here you have this little folder icon, so you can go ahead and add them. So we'll add the first 3 here. Now, a quick note about this. This is just a temporary folder. So if EBSCO happens to time out, which happens quite often, you will lose all of that work that you've done. So our recommendation is when you are searching in EBSCO, if you are planning to spend a lot of time in there and sending references into EndNote or any other citation manager, make sure to create an account in EBSCO. It's free. Log in, create a folder, and then add them to that folder, because that way, if you get timed out, you can still access anything that you've saved. So once you want to send it to EndNote, once you're ready, you can go to folder here up at the top, or go to folder view here on the right side. And then you can select all the references and then export, same process. So it's already default here, direct export RIS. You can remove them from folder if you want to, and then hit save. And then there is the download. So all three will pop in here, which is really nice. So it's that easy, usually. Let's show you another one. So ProQuest is another platform that many of our databases are hosted on. So it's good to be familiar with this one too. So I'm going to search psych info. Same topic, right? Graduate students and stress. And the process is very similar. So here, if you wanted to do just an individual reference, once you're here, you're reading the abstract, you're like, okay, I want to save this to my EndNote library. They have this really nice, convenient cite button. So once you select cite, then you have the option to do EndNote or RIS. Either one will work. So we'll stick with EndNote and then continue. And then it will download an RIS file that will populate into your library. So there it is. Okay. To save us time, I'm just going to jump over into showing you how to do multiple ones, which is a little bit more convenient than EBSCO. You don't have to add it to a folder here. So we're going to go ahead and select the first three. And then you would click on the cite button again. So very nice that you can use those check marks. Select EndNote. Prove to them that you are not a robot. So bicycles. Hopefully I didn't miss any in there. I don't know. We'll find out. No, I guess I did. Okay. So if you have an account in ProQuest, it probably won't ask you to do this verification. Oh my goodness. I guess I am a robot. All right. Okay. So once you do all of that and you continue, it's going to download and you'll be able to get all those references into your EndNote library. Okay, great. So we're starting to see that we're building a really nice library here, which is really cool. Okay, so we also wanted to show you PubMed in case you are a frequent user of PubMed. The process is very similar, but the file type is different. This is an outlier. So all of them use RIS. PubMed does not. So we just wanted to make you aware of that. So I've already been in here searching, as you can tell. Let me clear this selection. So if you have an individual record that you want to send in there, you do have, again, this very convenient cite button. And then here you see that the file type is a little bit different. It's NBIB versus RIS. So this is the correct file type. It's different for PubMed than the others. So once you do that, it's the same process. You would click this and then it will populate into the EndNote library. So there it is. And then to do multiple, if we go back to our search results here, you would use the check boxes. You could check off multiple articles at one time. And then here you would select send to. Then citation manager, right? That's what EndNote is. And then it would create that download file for you with all the NBIB files. So once we do that, then we have all four in there. And now we have a really, we're starting to get this developing library. So pretty straightforward with the direct export. If the option is available, a lot of journal websites, have the direct export option. Google Scholar, you can also do direct export there if you click on Cite under any of the results that you want to send over. If you log into your Google account, and add them to your library, you can send multiple ones at one time. So there's a lot of resources that have that direct export feature, but some don't. So here is a website. So this is an article from the New York Times. So what can we do about these that don't have a direct export option? So we can create them manually in EndNote, or we can use this EndNote capture shortcut. So here's mine here in my bookmarks, and I'll show you where you can get it. So what it does, and you do have to have it an EndNote online account to use this feature. I've already logged into mine, so that's why it didn't ask me to log in. So what this does is that it will crawl the website, the page that you're on, to try to pull the metadata or the information for that particular material. So you can see here, it's tried to pull the title, the year. You know, it has here at New York Times, although the publisher might be a different name. It does have somewhat of an abstract. So the downside to using this is that it's usually never complete. It is still going to require you to put in some information yourself. But the nice thing is that it's integrated into your workflow, it's in the browser, and it's a shortcut into EndNote. So a couple things, make sure that you select EndNote versus myendnote.com, just because this will take you to your EndNote online account versus the desktop. So make sure that's one thing that you select. The other thing is the reference type. The default is journal article. Please make sure you pay attention to this because this will determine how the citation style formats your reference. It's going to be dependent on the reference type and it has to be correct, okay? So here, for example, this is a newspaper article. So we're going to change this. And then we see that the fields have slightly changed, right? Instead of author, now it's reporter. Like we mentioned, there's missing information here. So we have to kind of fill that in. So we have here our author. So we can go ahead and start to add that information. You know, we can add the name of the newspaper, things like that. We know that we're going to have to work on this, right? But at least we can get it into EndNote this way. So we're going to select Save To. And there's the download. And now we have our reference here. Okay, so we see the preview here. We have the option to edit, which we may need to. We may need to add information here because from capture, it's not going to be complete most of the time. So that's EndNote capture. If you are interested in having that little bookmark, you would go into your EndNote online account. So this is the older version of EndNote online. With EndNote 21, there's a new EndNote online version. So there's two that they're running right now. So if you want the capture feature, you do have to log in. It's the same account. You just have to log into the older version. And then once you're here, you would go to downloads, and then you would just drag over that bookmark into your bookmarks up at the top of the browser. And then it'll show up there and it'll crawl the pages and serve as a shortcut into EndNote. But there may be times where, you know, the capture doesn't work that well. You still have to add a bunch of information, or it's material that it's not available online. And that's where you have to create the citation or the reference manually. So it's pretty simple. Here you can use this shortcut icon right here. It's a little clipboard with a plus sign. If you go to references at the top menu, you can go to new reference and do it there too. So I'm going to click here. And it's going to open up this form that you can fill out with the metadata or the information for that particular material. Make sure that you choose a correct reference type. You know, it could be artwork that you're citing. It could be a bill. What else might not have a direct export option? A computer program that you're citing. You know, a grant. That may not have a direct export option, or a government document, a film, right? So these types of material that you want to include in your papers or your manuscripts, these might have to be created manually. So once you select one of these, then it will format, you know, that will include the proper fields for you to fill out. Once you do, you'll hit save, and then it will populate into your library. Okay, so any questions about adding references into EndNote, direct export, manual, capture? Okay, So I'll move on, but if you think of something, feel free to put it in the chat. Okay, so the other way I wanted to show you how to get references in here is if you've already done a lot of research and you have a lot of PDFs, you can still build your library with those PDFs without you having to go and search for every single reference to build your library. So you can do that by going up to File here at the top menu and then Import. And you can do one PDF at a time, or you can do a folder of PDFs. So I'm going to show you a folder. This pop-up is going to show up. You're going to select Choose. And then here's my folder with my 5 PDFs. The import option is PDF. That is correct. And then you can import all of them, or you can decide to remove any duplicates you might have, that way you don't send any duplicates with this import. So once you do that, depending on how many you have, it might take a while, but I only have 5, so it shouldn't take too long. And what EndNote is trying to do is that they're trying to find the reference or citation information for the PDFs that you've imported. If it's machine readable, if it has a DOI, more than likely it's going to do just that. So out of the 5 that I imported, 4 of them, it was successful, right? It not only brought in the PDF, which we see here on the right side, but it also brought in all the citation information for me. And we see the little paper clip here letting us know there's an attachment, which is the PDF. This is great, right? Time saver. But we did have one that maybe was not machine readable, maybe it doesn't have a DOI, maybe it's older. So it only comes in with the file name and it wasn't able to find the reference information. So if that happens, then you'll have to create it manually. And you do have the PDF right here available to you with the information. So you would just have to go into the edit field and then add all the info for that particular reference and then save. So that's how you're able to do that. That way you don't have to start from scratch if you've already collected a bunch of resources before even starting with a citation manager. So now that we have all these references in here, how can we organize them? So Chris mentioned this a little bit when talking about the navigation. I'm going to head back to my original library here just to show you, some of the features with organization that I've already done. So the first one is the groups. You can think of these as folders, and EndNote refers to them as groups. So you can create individual groups. Like here, for example, I've created a group where I've put my asthma articles, articles about hypertension, or you can create group sets. So the group sets allow you to further categorize your work with subtopics, right? So in this case, I have a group for diabetes, a group set, and then I have articles that are focused on patient education. I have articles focused on underserved populations. So it just further helps you organize your work or subdivide it. You can also use the group sets if you have a really big paper and you have multiple sections with different references for each section. Maybe you want to create a group set for a course or a class you're taking, and then have different groups for different assignments that you're doing. So you can be creative based on whatever you need. If you want to create an individual group, you can go up to My Groups and then right click and then Create Group, right? So then here we could put, and that would be, you can name it whatever you want. You could always right click it. You can rename it. You can delete it. Just because you delete a group doesn't mean you delete the references in the whole library. They will still be here in all references at the very top. If you want to do a group set, then you could again go to My Groups, right click, and then create the group set. So just going to leave it with that name. And then you would select it, right click, and then you can create multiple groups under there. And then adding references to groups, you can use the drag and drop method. So you can drag and drop into one group. You can add the same reference to multiple groups. That's totally okay. You can also right click and then add references to, and then you'll see all of your groups pop up here on the right side. So there's multiple ways to get the references into those groups. Another feature that you can use are the tags. This is new to EndNote 21. So if you're still on EndNote 20, you won't have this feature. So if you want to update, you can. Just make sure you uninstall 20 before you reinstall or install 21. But this is specific to 21, where you can add tags to your references. So if you click the little plus sign, they make it very easy, which is nice. There are 7 colors to choose from. You can name the tag. So let's do another test here, and let's do yellow and create tag. So now you've created this tag here, which is great. And then let's say we go back to our references. And then how do we actually tag them? There's multiple ways to do this. You can drag and drop, like we did for the groups. So we can, you can do multiple if you want. You can drag into that particular tag, and you see it added the yellow here. There's multiple colors, so you can add multiple tags to one reference, which is really nice. You can always change this if you want to rename them up at the top. Once you select a reference and you go to edit, you can manage the tags here as well. If you want to add a new tag to this, for example, there you go. Then we just add another tag. So there's multiple ways to do that. And it's up to you how you want to use the tags. You can use them as action items. Like, for example, my red means I've already read that. The blue means I haven't read it yet. I need to. You can do it by like study type, if you want to tag all the review articles. So it's up to you how you want to use that. There's, could be creative with it, which is a really nice feature they've added.
Actually,
Okay.
sorry to interrupt you.
Please go ahead.
Daisy.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a question in our chat. Are there any limits when it comes to PDF files, just size, number of files, etc.?
I think it allows for a lot of them. It's like a very high number of PDFs that you can include. I don't know, Chris, if you have a more specific answer to that, but I know that it can hold a lot. I don't know if you've come across that before, Chris.
Yeah, there's no storage limit that they apply. So
yeah,
attach away, basically.
Attach away. Yeah. And the data folder, going back to that, right, is where a lot of that is stored. So that's why the data folder is so important to keep with your ENL file. But yeah, that's a great question.
That's right. That's
okay.
for local storage, right? But when it syncs, it can sync the PDF up.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. So another thing about staying organized is removing duplicates. So Chris touched on this a little bit. The reason you may want to remove duplicates, I'm going to go back to my other library, since I know for a fact there are duplicates in here, so I can show you. So you want to remove duplicates because let's say you spend a lot of time fixing one of these references, you added the information, you corrected a few things, and then there's another one out there that's not correct at all. When you're inserting into your Word document, you may not insert the one that is accurate. That's one thing. Another thing would be when you're inserting into Word, if you have multiples of the same reference and you insert one instance of it and then you insert the duplicate at some other point when you're referring to the same reference, EndNote and Word don't know that you're talking about the same thing. They are treating it as two separate references. So you may have that reference pop up twice in your reference list. It's not going to know it's the same one. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you remove the duplicates from your library. So you can do that easily here through EndNote. If you have all references selected and you go up to library and find duplicates, it's going to start to search. And then you have that side by side where you can compare to see which one is more complete, which one you want to keep. As Chris mentioned, unfortunately, you can't merge them, so then you would just keep the ones that you want to keep. Make sure you do check. Sometimes it thinks it's a duplicate, but it actually isn't. So you could always skip it if it's not a true duplicate, or just cancel to get out of the whole process. So that's another important thing to help you stay organized. And then finally, adding the PDFs. We've talked about this throughout a little bit. So with adding the PDFs, you can do the import folder like we did when you don't have any references in here. But if you already have a reference and you found the PDF, you're able to attach the PDF to it. So let's say I've selected this one by Alan, and then you can just hit attach file. This will open up your folders. And then here's the PDF that I've already downloaded, and then it's attached. So now the PDF is here attached to this particular reference. I'm able to annotate. You can save those annotations and those notes. You can search them later. So they've made it really easy and convenient. I did want to mention, just going back to Stephanie's question, that not only can you attach PDFs, but you can attach other files to this. So if you want to attach a Word document with any notes, PowerPoint slides, images, that are relevant to that reference, you can also attach those to that particular reference as well. So that's a really nice feature. And EndNote kind of serves as a one-stop shop where you can organize your references, you can store stuff, right? And then you can use it to cite, which Chris will cover. And then finally, the find the full text feature. So this is when EndNote will try to find the full text for you. So let's say that you have found a bunch of references. Now you need to get the PDFs or the full text to read these articles. So EndNote will do its best to help you with that. You do have to do some settings. It will search for freely available material, but it will also search any material that we subscribe to through the library. So to set that up, the links, and maybe someone can post them in the chat. But on our setup guide here, on the medical libraries EndNote guide, we do have the links here as well. So here it is under setup, find full text feature. And here are the steps to make this happen. Okay. And the links that you'll need to copy and paste. So if I go back into EndNote, if I wanted it to see if it could find some full text for me. So let me pick some, oops. No. Okay. So I'm just picking a few here to see if EndNote can find them. And then from here, you can use another shortcut. You can use this little icon here. That's like a little document with a magnifying glass. And then it's going to ask you to authenticate. This works sometimes. So we're still trying to get the kinks out for off-campus. But if you're asked to authenticate, it would be with your FIU credentials. Then you would select continue. And then on the left-hand side here under find full text, it will show you what it's doing. So it's searching for the 8 I've selected. If it's found any, it's going to tell me. If it hasn't found any, it's going to tell me too. So it's pretty common that it won't find a lot of them. But, out of 10, if it finds 5, those are 5 you don't have to go out and look for. So it's found a few. It's still searching. Yep, it's going for one more. So it didn't find a lot of them, but some of them it did. So it'll tell you which ones they were. If you select here, you'll see the 2 that it found for. And then you have that little paper clip letting you know that it has that PDF attached. So it didn't do so great on this run. But that does happen, but it can save you time. If you have 50 and it finds 25, those are 25 you don't have to go look for individually. So to set that up, it's going to be under edit and then preferences. And then it's going to be under find full text. So all those steps on our guide are there. And then the links that you would paste are going to be in those different fields. Chris, did I miss anything? Or did you want to move to the collaborate part?
Yeah, I think you got it, man. That was awesome.
Okay.
All right. So we can move on to we can pause for any questions. I can go ahead and share the screen right now. I just imported a few references, and I'm running the find full text feature. And I was actually able to find it depends on the source, right? It depends on where you're going. Some places are more proprietary, and some places you'll find a better success. So I was able to find 12 PDFs, 2 URLs, and then 3 were not found. So, but it depends. Any questions?
Yeah, Chris, quick question. Is there any book or some references that you could share with us to learn more about the EndNote, the essentials? Because
Absolutely.
sometimes.
So Daisy has been referencing a guide. So we have a whole web page that's dedicated to these details, which we will go ahead and drop in the chat. I'm sure by the end of this presentation, I will also reach out and send it via email, so you can get back to it and review it. You can also review our grad studies page, which has some information, and citation managers page.
I'm sorry for entering late, but I think that you were talking at the entrance about the EndNote software. So do I need to purchase, or is
right?
Could you
So the
please give me?
software, yeah, the software is usually fairly expensive if you go through EndNote or any big box store, but you can go to panthertech.fiu.edu. That's our FIU Panther software, Panther technology store, and they have the free download. So it's subsidized by the university. So you can go in, you authenticate, make sure you're part of the university community by logging in, and then you can add it to your cart and check out. You'll get a download for free. Okay. Now, if you need the CD, if you need the media to put into your computer's CD-ROM drive, if you still have one, then you will need to pay. I believe it's $20 for the disc. But then you own it.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you. I appreciate your input. Thank you. I'm going to the link to the store.
All right, you're welcome. All right. So any other questions? All right. So here we go. Now there are some collaboration steps, as Daisy was mentioning, that you can go ahead and share your group with non-desktop users or desktop users. So I'm here in my graduate students and happiness folder. This is the search that I was running. And I can right click here on the group, or actually do the double click since I am on a Mac, and you can take this and share the group. So when we click on share group, it should pop up with a dialog box here that allows me to either share with people who are already in my contact list, or I can add an email address. So I could put in, Daisy's email right here, give them permission to either read and write or to read only. So if you only want to share the information, not have them contribute, you can do that, and you can pop in a message and send them an invitation. They do need to respond, and then you're both collaborating, or 3 of you, or 4 of you, or 10 of you, right, are collaborating on this one given project on graduate students and happiness. And we're going to all pull our resources, we're going to do our share, and maybe we'll divide it up by database, maybe you divide up by topic, depends on how your workflow is, but you can absolutely go ahead and share with a group, share that load. Now, the entire library can be shared. We have some documentation online, as well as EndNote themselves. They provide documentation on how to do that, but that's something that we would actually not cover in this workshop here. The next step is going to be to write, right? So you've pulled your resources together, you're working either by yourself or with someone else, and now you're ready to start writing, right? So the first thing I want to show you here is that you can generate a one-off bibliography to kind of double check your sources, make sure that everything is composed correctly, right from here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all of these references. Let's say, these are all my references that I've collected throughout my research, and I want to double check to make sure that everything is looking good. So I've highlighted all of them, and I'm going to go to this menu up in the upper right-hand corner. You've got these icons, and this arrow that's pointing kind of up, towards the right at an angle says to export references to another file or library. So that's how you, again, the question was asked, how do we move from one application to another? This is a major export, right? So we can click on export, And what we want to do is we're not going to export as text only. We're going to export as RTF so that we can actually read it in our, in Word, right? So we're going to change this to RTF. And then we're going to select our output style. Now, I typically work in Chicago. Of course, you could change this to JAMA. You can change this to APA. If you have another style, you can always select another style. You click there, and there's tons and tons and tons of styles. Not only are these styles from from organizations or some of these larger, more well-known ones, but there are also styles in here that are from journals. So if you're writing an article for a particular journal, you very well may have a citation style that they have developed and sent out, right, for these citation managers to go ahead and incorporate into their applications. So take a look. A lot of times on the journal submission page, you'll see that they'll actually provide a link to it so that you can get it and import it into your version of EndNote. But I'm going to leave that there. We could save. I've also already saved it beforehand. So here it is. Here is my one-off bibliography, right, of all these references that I have sent out. This is just a standalone file. So this has no integration. This is just for me to take a quick look. I can see I've got two different links here. I probably want to take a look at this one and modify that. Actually, I've got a few of them in here, but you can look at it, and just by looking at how the references are showing up, you can see that some of these are, what happened with this one? Some of these are kind of messed up. So you can always go in to the into the application itself, find that reference, probably one of these that didn't have anything, right? And fix it by double clicking, right? And going over to edit and fixing the metadata on that bibliography. The next step is going to be to actually get into a document and start writing an actual paper, start writing something and citing within that paper. Now, as I mentioned at the outset, EndNote 21 has a write while you cite feature within Word, right? So when you go to EndNote Online, you log in, you can go to the downloads section and get the cite while you write plugin for Word. That's the same place where that we showed you earlier with the capture tool, and then it will be installed as an add-on to your Microsoft Word, where you can write. Now, new with EndNote 21 is a citation tool that works within Google Docs. Okay, and we debated whether or not to show this off. We decided not to, because the university doesn't technically have a partnership with Google any longer. But if you do write within Google Docs, that's perfectly fine. You could still use it. When you go into Google Docs, you're going to go to extensions, click on add-ons, then get add-ons, right? And then you're going to get the add-on for EndNote 21. That will ask you to log in to your EndNote web, and once you've logged into EndNote web, then you can go ahead and use that function to automatically cite and generate bibliographies within Google Docs. But we're going to show you Microsoft Word. So I have a document already open here, Microsoft Word. I'm going to make it bigger so we can see it. And here we go. This is Microsoft Word. We should all be pretty familiar with it. I've got my title. I've got some text here, and I'm going to start citing. So what I'm going to do is locate a spot. Let's say right in here before this exclamation point, and I'm going to go to the EndNote 21 tab. That's all the way towards the top here, down towards the right, and I can go ahead and insert my citation. Right, so I'm going to insert my citation. I'm going to find a citation. Let's see. I'm going to search. Yeah, I'm going to search my libraries. Actually, let me You look for a student. So I know a keyword that I want is student here. Let's say graduate researchers' perceptions and expectations. I'm going to insert this one. And you'll see that we have our citation automatically dropped in here. And I'm using APA right now. So I can change this from APA. I believe it was 6th. I'm going to go to 7th. Why did I check? Annotated. And you'll see automatically towards the bottom here, we've got our bibliography or our references automatically set up. Again, I will show it to you here. Let's say I want to add a reference in this spot. How about, I already selected that one. But one about reference services. There we go. Both are added. Now I can double click on, I'm sorry, I can update the citation. Now, if I wanted to modify this, let's say I want to exclude the author, right? I can do that if I had already mentioned, let's say, according to, right, according to, what was it, Basharoon, comma. So I've already mentioned the author's name. So I don't need his name in the citation, right? I could do that to edit that part of the citation. One final element that's common is the multiple authors or multiple citations in a single reference. So I'm going to search here for happiness. Let's say I want to enter this one and this reference into one. So now I've got 2 references in a single citation. And I just happened to pick them in alphabetical order. Okay. I can change my output style, so I know that JAMA is going to look very different. As you can see, it's a numbered reference list. And that automatically updated my citations.
If Chris, if I might add to, if you're doing a numerical, like this, like AMA, and let's say you get your manuscript back from someone who's checking it for you, or you need to change the order of the sentences. If you've already created this with EndNote, it will automatically renumber everything for you in the correct order versus you having to renumber it and then you don't remember and which reference was which, and it becomes a big mess. And so that's why, you know, this is I think one of the greatest things about EndNote or using any citation manager when it comes to this type of editing on your manuscript, if you are using the numerical, you know, like an AMA, like a superscript number. So
yeah, I just demonstrated that right here.
when I
dragged, when I dragged this reference from the second paragraph up to before this this citation, it automatically changed all that around. I'll do that again. I'm going to move it back down here if I could select it. So, let's move it here. Give it a moment. It should automatically move Basharoon to the second. Now, when you're ready to, when you're finished with your paper and you're ready to submit it, you have a few options here, right? You can convert to unformatted citations. So now if you take a look, you'll notice that that these citations are highlighted in gray. Actually, let me switch to author date, just so you can see a little bit easier. When I click into a reference, you'll see that it's highlighted in gray. That indicates that there is an active connection with EndNote. This active connection with EndNote kind of messes with some of the systems that you usually submit your work to. Like if you're a student and you're submitting your paper to Canvas, if you're if you're submitting your paper to Digital Commons or another journal platform, sometimes this connection can kind of mess with the system and how it functions. So usually they'll ask that you go ahead and convert the paper to unformatted citations and then submit the unformatted version. So you're going to save this one, right? Like call it, my working document, call it my draft document, call it, whatever you're calling it. Keep that connection so you could always go back and make edits and update it and move things around and use the functionality of EndNote within the paper, but then also have a version, like a final version or a polished version, or a submission version that is unformatted, so that you can submit it and not have those technical issues with the platform. So does anybody have any questions about writing, generating bibliographies, modifying how, a special case where you want to enter, a certain type of a reference formatting?
While we wait to see if there's a question, I just wanted to add that if you need to edit your references, make sure you always edit them in EndNote and then update the citations. There's a button in Word to update the citations. You don't want to mess with the coding that EndNote has, because it's not going to know that you made a change. So if you need to change your references, let's say you submit it to a journal and they're like, hey, this is not right, you want to be able to edit it in EndNote and then update. So I think Chris is going to show that now.
Yeah,
it's usually the references at the bottom that need the fix, but yeah. So like if you
update,
right, so if you let's say you had something capitalized and it wasn't supposed to be capitalized, you can go back into EndNote, fix it in the edit field, and then come back here and then update the citation, for example.
Yeah, I can edit the library reference. That should send me to EndNote. Here it is.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And I can put in, what do I want to do? I'm just gonna, for example, I'm gonna make the researchers capital. It's not really what I normally would want to do, but I'm gonna go ahead and change that. Right, click OK. Now it shouldn't have changed yet. It should update when I click update. There we go. So it's updated now to capital R here, because it went out, fetched the latest update from EndNote and brought it back in. Now, if you had done that in here, right, capital P, right, and just left it at that, when you click update citations and bibliography, that should revert back to however it was in EndNote. So make sure you make the change in EndNote so that it's correct moving forward in all of your work.